Hello, Hayes. How do I tell my boyfriend that he needs to set better boundaries with his parents? They're wonderful, kind hearted people who have made me feel included in the family since day one of our now 3 year relationship. I've dated guys whose parents' intentions started out good, but then things took a turn, and I can say this is not the case with them. However, as of late, I feel like his parents have become too comfortable with me. As kind as his parents are, they're both left brained, analytical thinkers. Emotions and empathy are not really in their nature. If someone discloses an emotion to them, their initial response is to ask intruding questions. For example, I work a commission based job, and January has been low for sales. I told my boyfriend how the low sales are not only affecting me financially, but also emotionally, as I felt like I'm not good enough. I wasn't there to hear it, but I guess his parents asked about me over the phone, and he told them about my job. Then, when we all went to dinner, his dad goes, "You've been beating yourself up about not getting enough sales at work. Is this because you place your self worth into your job?" I felt the comment was inappropriate. It would have been fine if he turned it around into a pep talk, but he kept asking questions about my feelings that I wasn't comfortable discussing over dinner. It felt more like I was a frog being inspected in biology class. His mother, though well intentioned, can be a bit of a nosy Nelly. There have been times when I catch my boyfriend about to overshare with her, so I stop him in his tracks. Or if he and I are having a private conversation and stop talking when she walks by, she'll ask what we're talking about and persist until we tell her. We've had discussions about how he feels like he discloses too much to them, but I don't think he understands how uncomfortable this makes me. I understand his parents view me as part of their family, and I do want to be a part of their family, but I need my boundaries. I keep these same boundaries with my own family. It's gotten to the point where I don't feel comfortable spending time with them unless he sets hard boundaries. I know the boundaries I want. He does not disclose to them any information other than my physical well being, no matter how much they push. However, I'm nervous about this. He clearly cares about his parents, but standing up to them is something he feels uncomfortable with. I understand this, and I'm willing to work with him, but I worry if this continues, it will negatively impact our relationship. Yours, stay out of my business. Okay, first thing I want to say is that I think your boundaries and your feelings about this situation are completely valid, and most of the friends in my life would feel the same way. Like I have a visceral reaction thinking about that dinner you described because there really is nothing quite like being at an event, being at a meal, being with friends, family members, whoever, and being put in a situation where you're being questioned about your emotional well-being without your consent by people who aren't really prepared or equipped to have an emotional conversation. And that it just sucks. Like I've been in this exact position when someone is probing questions, and they might even be completely innocent questions. They might be fine questions, but coming from them, it pisses you off. And it actually sounds like that situation in particular, the way your father in law said, "I hear you're having a hard time at work. Is it because you place too much of your self worth in your job?" Like, the thing, it's less about the question, it seems, and the concept of placing your self worth in your job, which is so many of us do that. I think it's a completely normal thing to do and a normal thing to discuss. But it's when it comes out of the mouth of somebody who's not going to offer support or who can't be comforting to you or isn't comforting to you, it lands completely different. And the fact that you weren't bringing it up yourself, like his comment revealed that something had been discussed behind your back. I completely understand why you might fixate on that thing he said. And like if I may imagine myself in your shoes for a moment, this would be the exact type of thing that I like tell my friends later, like of something that pissed me off, whether it was an in-law or one of my parents or something else. So you're completely valid here. I think you're completely valid here, and when I was reading this, I thought a little bit. I'm not exactly sure where I land. Well, I do know what my initial reaction is, and we're gonna see where we end by the end of this. My initial reaction, I'm right there with you. I think your boyfriend needs to set better boundaries with his parents. I think you also might need to be more flexible with the way you're thinking about what those boundaries are. But I agree that you have every right to not want your in-laws, your boyfriend's parents, if I say in-laws throughout this, I apologize. You guys know what I'm talking about. You have every right to want to be in control of what they know about you and how they talk with you about personal things. And actually, you can't really control how they talk with you, but you can control what they know and what you share with them. And What I was thinking about though, because I do have a pretty strong reaction to like, your boyfriend shouldn't tell his parents everything without your consent. But then I thought back to a few episodes ago where we were talking, it was an episode where a couple was perhaps dealing with infertility and the husband did not want the writer to tell any of her friends. And or any of her family members, or didn't want her to tell anybody. And I still believe that that is unfair and that we don't get to decide who we tell about personal things in our life when they affect us. But so as I'm thinking about my reaction to this letter, I'm thinking, okay, well, how does my opinion contradict something I said before? So I was talking about it with Brian in the car about an hour ago. I brought up that contradiction. Like, is that fair though? Because I do believe that we should be able to tell our friends or our siblings personal things that are going on in our life. Let's say the personal thing going on in your life in context to this letter is if you're struggling with your self-worth and your boyfriend doesn't know how to support you or he's having a hard time. It's actually tricky because it might not affect him. So this might be information that he shouldn't share because it isn't affecting him, but let's say it is affecting him. I would say he should be able to confide in somebody close to him about what's going on. If your finances being low for the month is affecting him too, he should be able to confide in somebody that isn't you. That's a healthy thing to do for the relationship. But I don't think my opinion changes though when we're talking about it being his parents. And why is that? So and I asked Brian what he thinks about this. As someone Brian and I both grew up differently. We have different types of family dynamics, different relationships with our parents. And I asked Brian for his take, and he's like, no, I agree with you. Like, I think parents are different than friends or siblings. And you guys might have a different opinion on this. I think it's partially because the relationship between parents and kids and their significant other can be so complicated. I know I'm bringing baggage into that, but it's like you have to be on the same page with your partner about how you include their parents or both sets of your parents in your personal lives. Like, yeah, and maybe that's true for anything we're talking about here. Like your communication styles with the people in your life and how you go to support, you need to be aligned there with the person you're in a relationship with. Like if I feel strongly that I should be able to confide in friends about stuff in my life, even if it's about Brian, and Brian was vehemently opposed to that, perhaps Brian and I then wouldn't be a strong fit as a couple. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of point out that I don't think it's hypocritical because I don't think it's hypocritical in like such a major way that my opinion changes here because we're human beings. We have nuance, context matters. We're allowed to hold an opinion in one situation, but then it doesn't apply to another. Like this isn't mathematics. These are relationships and emotions. But I did think it was interesting. And I do think it's interesting that this is my reaction here. Because I don't think your boyfriend should share. I don't think your boyfriend should share. I don't think it creates psychological safety if you are worried that every vulnerable thing about your inner life that you share with your boyfriend, he's going to repeat to his parents. It's one thing for him to say, Alexandra's been having a tough time with work. So I honestly don't even like that, but that's also probably it's hard when you feel ashamed about a topic. And I completely understand the shame you might be feeling about the fact that you had a bad month. Money and shame are so deeply connected, and I completely understand you feeling not good enough. So actually, let me just speak to you directly on the low sales month piece of this for a second. And for anybody else listening who maybe has had a slow start to the year, isn't hitting their financial goals or their career goals or any of their other goals in the way that they imagined, like you're right on time. It's okay. We're not supposed to be at the top of the mountain all the time. And it sucks. I know we wish we were, but just because you had one slow month does not mean that the rest of the year is doomed. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean you're not good enough. It's sort of, at any point in the year, you're going to have those months, and you just had it now. You had it now. And I can relate to the ups and downs of financial wins in a job as a person who works for myself and is focused on, making more money this year. And I know it can be stressful. And I know that when we're not getting the deals we want, and in a commission-based job, I know this is true for you, like it can feel like you're not doing enough, even if you're working so hard. It can feel really demoralizing when you are doing all the things you're supposed to do and it's just not paying off right now, but it will pay off. Brian works a commission-based job too, and I see the stress of that. I know there's lots of upsides to working that type of role, but I know how stressful it also can be. And I think the way you're feeling is normal, but it's not real. You are good enough. You are good enough. But I can also I just completely understand why you might feel hurt, betrayed, uncomfortable for your boyfriend's parents to be bringing up those emotions to you. One thing maybe to talk about is like when we're dating somebody and they have a family, and I think we're going to talk about the family members right now, but this really applies to anybody. You're choosing them, and their family does matter. Like it matters who your partner's family is. If you really can't stand them and there's really big problems there, then maybe the relationship isn't going to work. But there's different rules that apply. And I think to a degree, if you want the relationship to work and if the family members aren't so awful, we have to accept people for as they are. So you started your letter by saying they're kind, wonderful people, but they're left-brained analytical thinkers and their emotional intelligence not the best. You don't relate emotionally in the same way. And there might be a piece here that we have to start expecting them to act how we know them to be. And this is really hard to do in life. It is really hard when you have to be around people who you wish were different. And look, if this was like your boyfriend, if you were saying your boyfriend lacks empathy and emotional intelligence, then I'd say, well, maybe he's not the right boyfriend for you. And we'll get to the boyfriend's shortcomings and opportunities in a moment, but if the boyfriend is right, you have to ask yourself, can I live with the fact that his parents might lack some of these skills that are otherwise important to me? And if so, how do I, for myself and for my relationship, when they show me exactly who I know they are, how do I make sure I'm not upset? That my feelings aren't hurt, or that I'm so frustrated I pick a fight with my boyfriend? It sounds like the question they asked you and their lack of pep talk that came after it is kind of exactly who you know them to be. And you're allowed to be frustrated by that. Like you're allowed to be frustrated by that, 100%. But I think if you want a long relationship with your partner, there has to be we need to like have some tools for you to know they're going to continue to ask you shit like that. They're going to continue to say things throughout your life that you're going to find insensitive, that you're going to find intruding. And for your own well-being, we don't want it to bother you so much. Now, that is easier said than done. This is something I work on a ton, like with my own therapist, and a ton, like how do you, like even thinking about my own mother, who I love very much. Like, we can't change people. And I think in any parent-child relationship, like there's going to be things about your parent that drive you crazy and that you wish were different, or that you wish you had an easier time communicating about. And I think in some relationships, in some close relationships, especially when it's your own parent, like you can work on it and you can address it. And maybe you can with your in-laws too. There has to be a degree though of I accept that you are the way you are, and I'm going to love you because of it or in spite of it. And it's not good for my own well-being to be surprised every time you do something that I should expect, right? I guess it's an issue of expectations. Is this because you place your self-worth in your job? It's such a direct question. Part of me is like, it could be a good opening question, but it's not a good opening question when it's being asked from somebody who, one, you have a preconceived notion about whether they're going to be able to handle the conversation, and two, if they like don't know how to be a part of a dynamic, supportive conversation like that. So I'm just like, if you already know who your father-in-law is, and then he asked that question, I can totally see you shutting down. I probably would have done the same thing. Oh, and the feeling like a frog being inspected. I get it. Like the way I probably would go mute and start answering in one word answers. That's my like when I feel like when I feel like I'm under a microscope or my like shame is kicking in, or when I'm in a conversation that I like really don't want to be in and it's really pissing me off, when I'm not being productive and when I'm not being proactive, I often go mute and just start doing yes, no, which can work, can shut a conversation down, but it doesn't always lead to the outcome that I want. Now your boyfriend. I think I think it's fair to want your boyfriend to have boundaries with his parents. I think it's fair to not want him to share every single detail about your personal life. I don't know if it's fair, and I think you might even agree to this once you hear me say it. I don't think it's fair to be like, you can only tell your parents about my physical well being. And I don't think that's even truly what you want. I think that might be what you want right now because you're looking for some hard and fast rules to eliminate this problem. But only talking about your physical well being, that cuts off so much connection, that cuts off so much information. And it is I think it's like controlling to a degree that might not actually serve you in your relationship, and it might not fix the problem. It might create more problems. I think it's less about the theme of the information, whether it's physical, emotional, something else, perhaps more like the level of detail. And it also seems that part of the problem is that they don't have discretion about how they use the information. But I do think it's fair to have some shared understanding of how he talks to his parents about your shared life. If what the two of you have together is like a real partnership. Of course, individuals in a partnership are always going to have their private relationships with their family members and with their friends and their independence, as they should. But I do think the parent dynamic is trickier. And like the bond you have with your partner, the person you're choosing to build your life with, choosing to share your life with, like that has to come first, I think. And if he agrees that he does disclose too much, if he agrees that his parents sometimes meddle with information they have, or they approach topics in ways that make you uncomfortable, I think he has to set those boundaries. Now, I don't think it's like, Mom, Dad, I'm setting boundaries with you. We need to change the way we interact. That might be overwhelming for your boyfriend to think through. It might be more like you and your boyfriend, I think, have to have some proactive conversations about this, but I don't know if he has to have a proactive conversation with him about it. I think it's more in situation. If they ask, "Oh, how's Alexandra doing?" And he says, "Oh, things are going well right now." And if they probe, then he can say, "Mom, Dad, like I've said what I said, you need to respect that. I'm not answering any more questions. Things are good." When you probe like this, it makes me not want to share more information with you. He also could have a conversation with them about how to interact with you better. Like, if that dinner went poorly and they questioned you in a way that made you uncomfortable, it's your boyfriend's responsibility, in my opinion, to be like, "Mom, Dad, she's not a frog. The way you went about that was really inappropriate. And if your goal is to be closer with her, may I suggest approaching these conversations this way? She responds well to X, Y, and Z. But maybe don't bring this up next time. If you bring stuff up like that, I'm not going to share it with you." I appreciate what you said, that these are the same boundaries that you have with your family. I think that's important. I think it's important for our partners to know sometimes that it's not so personal. Like we all bring, in any relationship you enter, you're bringing the history of your family, and you're bringing the dynamics and the communication habits and boundaries of your family. And it can be weird when you're mixing family and when you all interact with each other in different ways. You know, for all of the like thinking about my family, for example, for all of the despite our imperfections and despite the many challenges that we've gone through together, not even despite, probably because of them, we are very it can be very like real or like, well, I mean, my family can be avoidant about our emotions and stuff going on as well. But like there's often a lot of eruption, like both positive and sometimes fighting. Like I get into a fight with my sister. We don't fight so much anymore, but like I might get into a fight with my sister or with my mom, or there might be a fight that happens between everybody, or we might just hash things out really directly. Or sometimes people are being passive aggressive, but it's everybody's emotions in my family, I guess, are very front and center, or we're very clear about them. And then sometimes when I've been around other people's families, I'm like, wait, why is no one talking about anything? Like, why does no one need breaks from each other? Or like, why I can tell you're mad. Why aren't you just going to like say that you're upset? And why aren't you just going to like fight it out for a second? Why are you just going to swallow it down and never talk about it? There are downsides to all of these family communication styles, but you're used to what you're used to. And then you have boundaries based on what you're used to, right? Some of my boundaries are based on the different ways that I grew up. It can be really strange to then be around other families who behave differently. But that is what picking a partner is, and learning how to interact with their family. And that's what you guys are doing, and it is hard. So like the growing pains you feel, any of the discomfort you feel, I think this is what a lot of people feel as they're picking a person to marry or just be with. And it is a big deal. Like among my friends who are married or in long-term relationships, we spend a lot of time talking about the dynamics with in-laws. We spend a lot of time talking about it because some people's in-laws are really difficult. And even if they're not capital D difficult, they're kind and lovely, as you say yours are, they can still be so fucking triggering, and they can still create their presence, and it's not even them specifically, but like the things they do can be so triggering, and it's hard. And I talk about this with my therapist. Like I've sort of always known this, but my therapist has even said that among like the couples that she works with, a lot of the problems that come up later in marriage have to do with one or both of the individual's parents, and problems that have arisen because of those relationships. So it's like really something to be aware of. And I think probably what's most important here is that you and your boyfriend get on the same page. And there's so much that has to happen in getting on the same page, but if there's one piece of advice I can give you that I really feel strongly about, that my girlfriends and I, so many of my closest girlfriends and I, like we share in this, is that you can't complain to your boyfriend about everything relating to his parents. Like some stuff needs to be shared with your girlfriends and not with your partner. And you're not really getting into that, but it feels top of mind for me right now because yes, your boyfriend does need to come to this conversation and make some changes with what he shares with his parents. Maybe he both needs to share less with them and perhaps be more direct with them when they fuck up or when they engage with you in a way that like isn't productive. But the thing is, I think his parents are probably still going to continue to annoy you. Stuff they do is going to continue to bother you. And your boyfriend, is not going to be the best person to talk to about it all the time. You got to bring the complaints elsewhere a little bit. I'm not saying that anytime they do something wrong that you should let it slide and just text your friend under the table. But that is part of what friends are for and why we need people outside of our relationship. I was just talking with another girlfriend of mine about this after she had just like some real frustrating time with her in-laws, and her husband knows that his parents are being difficult, got into it with his parents about it, and can't just rehash it over and over again. You two of you as a partnership, you and your boyfriend, need to be the team. And sometimes we bring our frustrations outside of the team. But that can only happen if you feel like your needs are being taken seriously. But you're going to have to be flexible here too, which is why I'm like, I don't think the boundary about he can only tell them about my physical well-being is fair. And I think you know that too. So only you can come up with what you are comfortable with. But listen, I mean, I don't think a sustainable solution is like, I'm picturing you now having a meltdown about something with work, and you're crying and you're telling your boyfriend, and he's comforting you, and then at the end of it you have to be like, and please don't tell your parents this. Like, that sounds awful. I don't want you to have to think about that. I don't think about that. I don't want you to have to think about that. And if that is something that you're thinking about, if this is how top of mind it is, then, I mean, even if it's not, this is definitely something that you and your boyfriend need to talk about. I also get, though, that if he doesn't feel, if he opts out of being clear with his parents about this, and if he's like, this isn't a boundary I can set, I'm sorry, this is who I am, and they're nosy, and I'm always going to tell them everything because that's just our relationship, I can see how, I understand why you would worry. I can understand that this could negatively affect your relationship, and I think it could. I don't think it has to, and I don't think it will, because it does seem like he sees your perspective. It might be helpful, too, for you to think a little bit more about what exactly makes you uncomfortable. You said, I don't think he understands how uncomfortable this makes me. What exactly makes you uncomfortable? Is it the fact that they know things about you that you didn't tell them personally? Is it the fact that they know the deepest sources of shame? Is it the fact that they then bring it up at inopportune times, or that they don't know how to communicate about it effectively or sensitively? Are you perhaps worried that the same thing that's happened with your boyfriends of the past is going to happen here? You mentioned that you've dated people whose parents had good intentions at first, but it changed. I'm curious also, like, what changed? Our past experiences are always impacting the way we see the future, and I wonder how that is showing up here. And have you shared that with your boyfriend? It could be an important thing to share with him. Something that's coming up for you. Like, if you're thinking about, oh, well, Matt's parents started off really wonderful, but then look what happened. It's not fair to assume that your current boyfriend's parents are going to do the same thing, but it is fair that it's affecting you and that you remember it. And I also want to encourage you, though, that when his parents do things in the moment, feel free to be yourself and shut it down. This is something that I want to work on also. Like, being able to be like, I don't like that question. And you mentioned, like, you have boundaries with your own family. I think that it's easier sometimes to push back on our own family members. So if my sister or if my mom says something that annoys me, which she does all the time, I'm more comfortable being myself with my mother than I might be with my mother-in-law. But why is that the case? And maybe we could all do a better job of, if someone says something that we don't like, you can just say, that question's annoying me right now. Like, everyone's dynamics with their families are different, but I might say that to my mom. If my mom is asking me a lot of questions about work, I might say, Mom, I don't want to talk about this right now. Please stop asking me. What would it be like to do that with your in-laws also? Now, I know they're not literally your in-laws. 3 years, depending on how old you are, is either a really long time or not a long time at all. Maybe not just how old you are, but it might not be appropriate to do that with them. But there might be a version of that where you can say, you know what, I don't really want to talk about this right now. Or, the way you're asking me these questions makes me feel like a frog. Or, can we talk about this later? Like, maybe we should feel empowered to be more direct with these people in our lives, especially when we want things to get better. Like, maybe honesty, maybe that, like, really clear honesty, even if it doesn't come off the nicest right away, is what's best. That's something that I am working on and I'm trying to be better at myself, because, like I said earlier, my go-to when I'm really uncomfortable and really pissed off at the way somebody's interacting with me is usually to shut down. Like, I sometimes shut down. The phrase I've used before is, like, I feel like I'm zipped up in a sleeping bag, which is not consistent with how I am typically. So what would it be like for me to just respond from a place of assuredness and, like, assuredness? Am I saying that right? That word right? What would it be like for me just to, if I notice that I'm feeling uncomfortable or annoyed by something, what would it be like for me to be like, I just don't want to talk about that, instead of going into the mute mode or going into one word answers or letting it build up? Just say how I feel right away. Maybe you and I can both work on that. Okay. I think that's all I have for today about this, but I'm so curious. I'm so curious what other people think. This is such a relatable, this is just a very relatable topic in the lives of my friends and my stage of life at the moment. So thank you so much for writing to me. I do think that you and your boyfriend are going to get through this by both being flexible and being direct. It's like the two of you together are going to have to find what that middle ground looks like. You're going to have to be more flexible. He's going to have to be more direct. And I trust that you'll find your middle ground. You'll find your harmony. And don't worry about the low month. We got 12 months of the year for a reason. Even though I'm right there with you, that sometimes it freaks me out thinking about, we're almost done with the first quarter and like, but we're right on track. Everything's going to work out. Everything is working out. Okay. I love you and I appreciate you. If anyone is listening wants to write a letter, please send it to me at hellohayesbusiness@gmail.com, and we will be right back for part 2 of our episode. I don't know if you guys can see this with this camera angle or how far back I am, even though I'm actually pretty close up, that my entire face is peeling off right now. That's because a few days ago, it's Saturday and I got my green peel, which is one of my favorite facial treatments, on Wednesday, and my skin is totally peeling off. Can you guys see? Can you see that? This is my favorite thing I do. I think it's the most effective thing that I do for my skin. It's like a mix of herbs that you rub it in. My facialist rubs it in. It's like a paste that she rubs into my skin, and it feels like pins and needles, and it really hurts. And then she keeps it on for about 10 minutes. We wipe it off. That part's extremely painful. I don't wash my face for 2 days, and then my skin just peels off. There's no chemicals in it, so I call it a baby chemical peel, even though, again, no chemicals. It feels never had a facelift, but it feels sort of like a mini facelift, and it boosts collagen and always clears my skin. I think it's been one of the best things for my acne. I'm very worried about not knowing where to get green peels when I move back to New York. I'm sure they have them somewhere in the city if I look, but it's just the best. I might have to. I usually do it once every 2 or 3 months. More recently, because I was trying to cut back on some of my beauty related spending. To cut back on spending overall, I've been going less, but I just love it. But my skin is fully flaking. It should be better in a day or two, but it's at the point now where I'm a little embarrassed to go in public without addressing it. I'm I just want you to know that I'm aware that my skin is peeling off. Anyway, I want to talk to you about the movie Eternals. Brian and I watched Eternals last night into this morning. I think it's a perfect type of movie to watch the first half at one point and then pause it and watch the next. You know what I mean? Some movies you don't want to do that. Those movies, if I have to watch it all the way through, I really need to watch the movie starting at 4 p.m., 4 or 5 p.m. if we're going to do a nighttime movie, because I get so tired now that if I can't, actually it's so sad. It makes me feel kind of old that I can't. It makes me feel like my mother, that I can't start a movie at 8 o'clock. If it's a 2.5 hour movie at 8 o'clock, I'm going to have a really hard time. We got to keep all the lights on. But the movie Eternals, it's with Elizabeth Olsen, Miles Teller, and Callum Turner. I loved this movie. And it's such an incredible, I would have loved to be in the room when the idea was pitched or when the script first came through. I'm curious how it went. I know in Hollywood sometimes someone pitches the idea and then it gets paid, someone is paid to make it versus the script coming through. If you're not familiar, a married couple, they both die, and they get to this place after they die where they get to decide where they're going to go for the rest of eternity, right? It's a take on the afterlife. Only her first husband has been waiting for her for 67 years so that he could be with her for eternity. And this woman, Elizabeth Olsen, has to choose which of her 2 husbands does she want to spend eternity with. It's such an original, interesting concept, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. I was worried that the movie was going to end in an obvious way. It surprised and delighted us. Brian and I were both crying at multiple times, crying, laughing. It was so funny. And it got us talking about what would I was asking Brian, which of the guys would you prefer to be in this scenario? Would you prefer to be my first husband, or would you prefer to be my second husband? He's I'd prefer to be your only husband. I'm well, that's not one of the options available to you in this game. What an impossible decision. I don't know exactly what I don't have one set of beliefs of what I think happens when we die, but man, that is stressful. Also, the idea of having to pick one eternity with one person forever, I don't really love that. I don't love the idea of dying, the thought of death. I don't love the thought of dying, but it scares me more to think that you could die and then have to be somewhere forever. There's something maybe in the background of life that's reassuring, knowing that it isn't forever, even though it is also scary. When I say that death scares me, LOL, I was not expecting for this to go here, but here we are. When I say that death scares me, I'm not scared of being dead, but I'm scared of how I will die. I'm scared of like hurting. I'm scared of people being sad and like what I will leave behind, the sadness that I might leave behind. I'm scared of hurting people with my eventual death. Like who will be sad in the wake of that, which, hopefully if I live, God willing, people will be sad when I die. But I'm more scared of like how I'm going to die. I don't want to die in a scary way. I want to die peacefully, right? But to think that I could die and then have more choices ahead of me, like that's fucking exhausting. I think something maybe the reason life is worth living is knowing that it's not forever. So then to have to think that something is forever, I don't know. The movie was a pure delight. I don't feel like I've seen a real rom-com that also has depth. Not that traditional rom-coms don't have depth. I kind of miss the rom-com genre in general. Rom-coms are one of my favorite genres, which maybe also means that I need to read more romance novels. It was such a delight to watch, and I was in a comically bad mood yesterday when we started this movie. Something just like I say comically bad mood because it was truly so bad that it was funny. Like I was like stomping on a seltzer can. I stomped on two seltzer cans. I needed to go into the backyard and Brian like found a small brick for me to throw into the corner of the backyard. I was punching his arm. I didn't want to do that, but he's like, "Punch my arm, you won't hurt me." Punching his arm mad. I was in such a comically bad mood. Something just like switched and I was sitting in traffic and I was so hungry sitting. I went to get sandwiches. I met somebody and then I went to pick up sandwiches and I was so fucking starving. I like didn't eat lunch at the right time. You know when you don't have lunch at the right time and then the rest of your afternoon gets all screwy. All of a sudden it's 3:30 and like you're eating lunch, but you're supposed to be having dinner soon. I picked us up sandwiches, was sitting in an hour of traffic to go like 4 miles home, which never doesn't happen to me very often. And I know LA traffic is such a thing. I have avoided it mostly because I work from home. I ended up like eating half of my sandwich at one of the red lights because I was so famished, but then I ate it too quickly and my stomach hurt. And I just got home and I was in just such a colossal bad mood. But it was so bad that it honestly like wasn't that bad. You know when you're just so angry for no reason that you have to laugh? It was kind of that. And I was grateful to not be in like the depressed type of bad mood. But this movie, we put this movie on and it just lightened everything. So I couldn't recommend it enough. I really want to watch all of the Oscar. I don't think there's been a year of my life, and that's embarrassing to say. I don't think there's been a year of my life where I have watched all of the Oscar noms for Best Picture or Best Actors, and I kind of want to. It's not going to be this year because, girl, I got a lot on my plate, and I don't have time for all the movies. I mean, I'm too busy catching up on Pitt. I'm currently watching Love Story, which I don't really like, but I will continue watching. Love Story is the Carolyn Bessette JFK Jr. show. It's good. It's feeling it's making me nostalgic for New York, which is a good thing considering I'm moving back to New York. It is feeling sort of a Sex in the City, like feeling a little bit of that void, but I don't think the acting or the writing is all that great. But again, I will watch. I'm watching Shrinking. I got a lot of TV on. I don't have time for the movies, but I do really want to watch Hamnet. But I know that it might absolutely crush me, but I do need to watch it. I love Paul, and I've never seen Jessie act in anything, but I understand that she is just such a force and so incredible, so I would like to see it. Months ago, my therapist actually, months ago, we were talking about grief in a session, as we often do. And towards the end, she's like, "Have you seen Hamnet?" And I hadn't even heard of it. I'm like, "Should I see it?" And she kind of looked at me, and she's like, she's like, "I went to see it with a friend, and she's like, I held the friend the whole time." And my therapist doesn't talk about herself very much. It was one of the few times where she shares like a personal piece of information. And she's like, so I think maybe if you go, you should go with somebody who could hold you the whole time. I'm like, cool. She brought it up because I am doing a lot of writing about my own grief. And I think we were talking about that writing process. And now that I know more about what Hamnet is, I think perhaps it reminded her the journey that I am on in my writing about my grief. I think perhaps reminded her of not to compare myself to Shakespeare at all, but reminded her about the treatment of that movie and what the subject matter was and how Shakespeare ultimately um, coped with his grief. Not that coping with your grief is a final destination, it's a lifelong thing. Anyway, have you guys seen any good movies lately? I'd love to hear any recs. I'd love to hear any recs. I can't believe that March is like here. Ooh, I'm thinking about doing I spent some time on Friday thinking of some new video series that I can kick off ahead of the move. I really like having, at this exact moment, I don't have any video series that I am actively making on short form videos other than the podcast. And I really like having video series. If you are a creator, you're an aspiring creator, having series is so helpful. Both, it's something that I think as an audience member, I really like when I know that certain creators make certain types of videos repeatedly. It's something that I like as an audience member, but then also as a creator, it can be really nice for you and your workflow to sort of know what you're making to a degree. And especially somebody like I'm somebody who has a thought, maybe. I have a thought and then I record the video and then I post it. And I'm somebody who thinks that way and records videos that way, shares my thoughts that way, and those won't go away. That type of video making, content creation. But it's also nice to like have a plan, I guess. And I've been thinking about what types of series I can make, both ahead of the move and then during our road trip and once we move into the new place too, also, but I'm not getting ahead of that's a little too far ahead. And I don't even know how because it's March. So I'm thinking about what that series could be. And one idea I had, I need to come up with like a fun name. If anybody has any fun name ideas, let me know. And if I use it, I will Venmo you for a coffee or a bagel, whatever you'd like. Like every day, maybe like the 30 days leading up to the move, I cross one thing off my plate, whether it's an emotional thing I want to talk through or a logistical piece that I want to talk through. And then it'll be a countdown, like 30 days until the road trip, 29 days till the road trip, 28 days. And the videos could be like a little bit vloggy. I won't have any hard rules about what the actual video needs to be, but it will deal subject matter wise with crossing something off the plate before the move. Wow, it's a really rough idea, but I'm sharing it with you in case one, you guys have any feedback on that, or is there anything specific that you'd like to see if you have video series names. But then also, I'm really excited about doing road trip vlogs while we're taking our road trip. We're probably going to do it in about, we're probably going to do it in 8 or 9 days. I have not planned that yet. And quite frankly, like planning the road trip feels like something that's so, it's like honestly very overwhelming to me right now to have to think about doing that. So I'm putting it off a little bit. But the thought, I'm really excited to take you guys along every day. I thought about it could be fun to do like a longer, week-long vlog. I don't know exactly how it would work to be like doing the short vlogs and the long vlog. This is probably getting too logistical. I'm really just thinking out loud right now. I thought about doing both. Like it'd be really cool to have a YouTube video at the end, a long form YouTube video of like our week driving across the country. But logistically, I'm like, how will it work if I'm doing both? If I'm doing the short ones every day and then a long one every week? Maybe it would work. Maybe I could figure it out. I also want to do a long form video of our last month here. I think there's like this like scrapbooking mentality that's like, listen, I'm not a scrapbooker. But I'm definitely, now that the last month is here and I can even hear it in my voice, this sort of like frantic, fast talkingness where I'm like, I just want to capture everything. Like I want to film my last month of March and make like one epic video of March, the final month we were here, because I think I'm just wanting to like capture it. But I have to remember that even if I didn't do any of that, even if I didn't capture any of it, like I have the memories. Like I don't want to be so obsessed with capturing that I am not present. And I think sometimes we can trick ourselves. It's like, oh, well, if I capture everything, then I'll be present. But it can't replace the art of actually just being here right now too. And like, even if I captured nothing, this moment is happening now and I need to be here for it. And I'm trying to catch myself a little bit as I like make all these plans for videos and newsletters and all these things I'm going to do. Like, how about can I also just prioritize and And I also just prioritize like being present and living through it. And one of the ways that I live, though, is by telling stories and sharing. And that is one of the ways that I live. But what's the balance there? Anyway, if there's stuff that you'd like to see along this process, please let me know. I love hearing from all of you on your ideas. And I think that is it for today. I think that's it for today. Brian and I put in some offers on some rentals, which is an insane thing that you have to put in offers on rentals. But we put in some offers on rentals, and we're going to talk. We have a Zoom in a little bit with somebody who wants to meet us. I guess that makes sense if you're like having people, rent your house. It's unfamiliar for me. We certainly didn't do that when we live in a house now that we rent. We did not do that. But hey, we're rolling with the punches. And I'm hoping that in the next week or so, I'll have a little bit more clarity of where we're actually going to be for a year. Because our plan now is to sign like a year rental, see if we like it, where we're going. And if we don't like it, we'll go somewhere else afterwards. But we've sort of taken off our plate the pressure of like picking where we're going to live forever. Like we're just picking where we're going to go next. I love you all. I appreciate you so much. If you haven't left a 5-star review for the podcast, please leave that wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe to my Substack. I don't think I've mentioned to you guys that I've been writing again there. I'm experimenting with some different ways to use the Substack, to use my newsletter in connection with the podcast. The last couple of weeks, I've been doing like a behind the scenes. I've been writing a story, adding a different perspective related to the theme of the podcast that I didn't talk about on the podcast. You can subscribe there at hellohayes.substack.com. You can do free subscriptions. Most of the things I publish are free to read. But you can also, if you want and are able to support the Hello Hayes ecosystem, the work of this podcast, with a $5 a month or $50 a year subscription, I'm so grateful. I think I have about 65 people who subscribe to Hello Hayes, and that financial support is so meaningful to me. And I appreciate you. Okay, I hope you have a great rest of your week wherever you're listening to this from, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.